What's going on, guys? Bexio back, and today we got a brand new video. This time on Bitcoin and 2022 outlooks. Where's the price going? How is it going to interact with the thing? And seeing how it reacted in 2021, what actually happened. So we'll get into Bitcoin. But before we get into that, if you're not subscribed, make sure to smash that sub button because we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. But let's take a look at Bitcoin's price chart here. Very simple stuff. This is the weekly chart for Bitcoin. So we went all the way from literally about $25,000, maybe 26K almost, ran all the way to 69,000, and where we are right now at $47,000. Bitcoin, a pretty good year, I would say, beat the S&P index, everything, and people complaining about a 60% year on Bitcoin makes no sense. But what we didn't see this year was a blow off top type thing. And the reason we might not have seen that is, one, breaking away from those cycles, 4-year cycles of, going to the halving, blow off top, collapse 80%. I think those cycles are done, and they're done because the market is more efficient now. So before, it was just retail investors, everyday people, miners involved in this ecosystem. Now we have institutions, hedge funds, multi-billion-dollar companies, countries getting involved. The market is going to be a lot more efficient with so much more money flowing in, so much more high-level people and hedge funds and all these types of deals of people holding this asset and kind of not going and trading it or looking for this blow-off top to try and sell everything off. So the market getting more efficient, we're going to see less of these blow-off tops, which also means we should see less of these 80% drawdowns. So we didn't have this blow-off top this year. So it would completely shock, I think, everyone if we saw an 80% correction from where we are right now, or from 69K, you can go down 80%. It just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Looking at Bitcoin 2021, this 60% Bitcoin is just blows everything else out of the water. And there's actually people who are upset at 60% or complaining or showing like looking at these altcoins and saying they did so great, but next year when they collapse and are negative and are worthless, then they're just not going to be around, like all the penny stocks in the stock market. So, but you have 6% Bitcoin, 35% real estate, 27% stocks, and then negative 2% bonds, negative 4% gold. So this is a market that can explode and go into Bitcoin because we have like 7% inflation, let's say. So this 4% is actually negative 11% on inflation terms. So your real world yield, if you were holding gold this year or in 2021, was negative 11%. You lost 11% of your money because you held gold. Same thing with bonds. It would be negative 9%. So a real term yield of negative 9%. That is ridiculous. You look at the size of the bond markets, the gold markets. Gold is like 10, 11 trillion. Bitcoin, even if you round it up to a trillion, it's like 800 billion right now or something like that. But if you take those markets now, so for 2022, we can look at the gold market, the bond market. These are the gold, like 10 trillion, the bond market, $100 trillion market. You get just 10% of the bond market. That's $10 trillion. That matches gold already. Then that would put Bitcoin at $500,000. And then you take gold as well. Another, say you get 50% of gold volume or 25%, just to say these gold bugs move over to Bitcoin because they'd rather have this digital store of value that's shown success where gold really has. So that would be a $2.5 trillion of the gold market cap moves to Bitcoin, if just 25%, which is high. But I think that we're starting to see people who are like store of value and have their assets in gold as a store of value are realizing it's just not doing that, and it's not feasible in today's world. So that would be, if it was 10% of the bond market and 25% of the gold market flows into Bitcoin, that's $12.5 trillion. So it's massive market still to be out there to be had for Bitcoin. And because we didn't see this blow off top, I think that's where we're heading in 2022, is this kind of area where Bitcoin starts to get these gold bugs and they start to realize, Bitcoin's performance and history is better than gold. Store of value is better. all these things it's just better at doing than gold. Start getting them in. You start getting the bond market investors, people who want kind of safe investments, but they're losing money right now. So it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're losing your money. So them coming over to Bitcoin as kind of the blue chip crypto stock, the safe crypto, and the way to do it. And that's what Bitcoin gets so much power from is yes, you can go kind of hunt for Dogecoin and hunt for Shiba, but in the process of hunting for those, you could lose tons of money. And that's just not someone who has, their company balance sheet, all these things. They're not willing to try and do that. And obviously, going on that point, we have Michael Saylor continuing to buy Bitcoin. He on the 29th, literally just a couple days before the end of the year, he buys 19 or over 1900 Bitcoin for $94.2 million. And they now have 124,391 Bitcoin. Ridiculous stuff. A ton of conviction. And this opens the door to all these corporations as well. So when you see Apple might have to start trying to get into Bitcoin, see if they want to put on their balance sheet because of MicroStrategies, Tesla, Square, these companies putting it on theirs. We're looking at Apple, Google, Microsoft, these big giant companies to kind of do this move, but they'll probably be the last ones to do it. So over 2022, we'll probably have more smaller companies going in and putting on their balance sheet because they would like it to preserve their purchasing power to grow their company. So it makes sense for them to do it. And as that happens, Bitcoin gets more valuable. And as Bitcoin gets more valuable, the big guys, the Apples, Google, Microsoft, the trillion-dollar companies, they look at Bitcoin and start to say, we have X amount in gold. Why don't we move some into Bitcoin and see how this does? And then you start to see that happen and the adoption continue moving forward. And one of the biggest things we're going to be looking for in 2022 is the Bitcoin ETF. I don't know if we're going to see it in 2022. This might be something we see in 2023, but it definitely is on the table for 22. I don't know how likely it really is though, but you can see one of these quotes talking about the future ETF. They were saying another thing we will see in the next year, 2022, is a spot Bitcoin ETF for U.S. investors. There may be some creative ways that companies go about getting a spot Bitcoin ETF to U.S. people. It may not be actually issued on a U.S. regulated exchange like the stock market, NASDAQ, those things. But we will see that tool finally come to market for investors. This is something that needs to happen. We need a Bitcoin spot ETF in the US. It's everywhere else in the world. Canada's got a bunch. Brazil's launched them. Tons of countries in South America have them. Countries around the world have Bitcoin spot ETFs, and the US is sleeping at the wheel, completely ignoring this for some reason. I don't know why. But they'll launch a futures ETF. That doesn't make any sense. But this will be a massive catalyst. So if you go on, you see a Bitcoin ETF come, I think that's when you see massive inflow. The $100,000 Bitcoin would be easily surpassed very quickly if it's not near there. If we say 50K and a Bitcoin ETF comes out, it's probably a couple days for Bitcoin to hit 100,000 because the spot ETF is just going to be such a big tool for all these massive companies, massive investors, and hedge funds to use instead of going directly and buying Bitcoin. Then they got to custody it and do it themselves. And it adds a little bit of work to what they got to do. So overall, in 2022, I think we're looking at another good year for Bitcoin. And we also have the SEC concern with them going after other cryptos and declaring them securities and shutting them down. So if we see that, that's another catalyst to jump and pile into Bitcoin as the safe haven where the SEC is not going to go after Bitcoin, but they can go after everybody else. Maybe they don't go after Ethereum either, but literally anyone else other than Ethereum and Bitcoin are on the table to go after for the SEC. So that's another reason we can see massive inflows from Bitcoin from the SEC, massive inflows from gold bugs or gold holders who want to actually go to an asset that's performing and not one that's costing them. The bond market is going to be massive. I think that's a little bit of ways away, but that's another tens of trillions of dollars to flow into Bitcoin. There's just so much more money that can come into Bitcoin that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention. As for price prediction for Bitcoin for 2022, we might as well put one out there. My last one was 115,000 for 2021 at the beginning of the year. Obviously, we didn't hit that. So if we see this Bitcoin spot ETF in the US, I think it's like 150Ks on the table if that gets launched and, people start to go to that. And I think that's what'll happen. But let's stick to around 100K because even if without that, I think that hedge funds start to come back in. All the funds come back in, all the institutions, companies continue adding to the balance sheet. That list grows that are holding Bitcoin. So I think 100K is still on the table for 2022. 150 or 200 if this spot ETF actually comes out and gets passed. I think the SEC comes down hard on some of these altcoins, and that's going to scare a lot of people into Bitcoin. And then the spot ETF that come, I mean, that's game over. Let's say 100 to $150,000 for 2022, because there's a lot of circumstances where Bitcoin's the asset in crypto that everyone is going to flock to. But that's going to do it for this video. Bitcoin 2022, still bullish. I think we're breaking away from those 4-year cycles and we're not going to go back. We're going to have more of these kind of rounded top, rounded bottoms, kind of trading like the stock market does. The market is maturing and getting to that point where it's much more efficient than it once was. So we'll see how it acts. But as always, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. See you guys in my next video.